Think we're going? All right, sweet.
Yep.
Awesome. Flatline MMA podcast episode number 20. Kev, we did it. We're at number 20. We're big time now. Listen, thanks to all of our loyal fans, all our loyal listeners that got us to this point here. Keep on listening. Please hit the subscribe button on this. We're trying to get big. We're trying to get huge. You guys know the deal by now. Flatline MMA, we're sponsored by CBD Medic. Click the link below for 10% off all your CBD needs. Use the code Flatline10. We use it. Gronk uses it. You guys all should be using it. Today's episode, we're going to do a recap of UFC 247 last weekend. Definitely one of the more controversial cards in a while here, headlined by, light heavyweight GOAT John Bones Jones taking on Dominic Reyes. So we're going to preview, just give a little recap on that card. And then we're just going to preview next weekend's Fight Night, UFC Fight Night 167, featuring Corey Anderson taking on Jan Blachowicz for an important light heavyweight fight. So let's just get right into this, buddy. UFC 247, definitely, like I said before, one of the most controversial cards, I think, in a while. And I think that's mainly due to the judging. So we'll get to the main event in a little bit here, but why don't we just get started into the prelims here with the headliner, which was Tevin Giles taking on James Krause in a middleweight bout. So kind of the backstory here, Tevin Giles, his opponent had to pull out. I think it was due to weight cut. I don't know, he couldn't make it to the scales right. James Krause was actually coaching one of the other fighters on the card here, and he was on weight. The UFC called him up and said, hey, are you interested in fighting Tevin Giles at middleweight? James Krause, being the badass that he is, stepped up, literally went onto the scales on, the day of weigh-ins. Badass. The guy's usually fighting at 155 or, sometimes at welterweight. So this is a huge step up for him. James Krause stepping in. And what made this great is that Tevin Giles is actually a Houston guy. So he was fighting in front of his hometown. He's a Houston cop. So the biggest thing was he was able to stay on the card because James Krause was willing to step up and take that fight. And honestly, super impressed with James Krause, man. And super impressed with Tevin Giles. I think that first round, you saw how good James Krause is. Without a training camp, he had Tevin Giles on his back.
Yeah.
What would you say, 4.5 minutes?
Yeah, it was almost the entire round. He was on his back, and had him in a bunch of different chokes that he was able to work his way out of. But I don't know, Giles was in a lot of trouble that entire first round.
Yeah, and you could tell. I mean, it was Krause came out and he wanted to make a statement, man. Giles, you could tell being in there as the bigger man. Giles is a monster compared to Krause, dude. So what he was able to do in that first round was spectacular, especially someone with really no training camp. You didn't really know how his cardio was going to be, right? He was coaching. He was definitely still in shape. All these guys are still in shape, but to be able to put up a first round like that was crazy. And then going into the second, Giles kind of stepped it up a little bit. You could tell that James Krause was kind of, wearing off. You could tell the cardio just wasn't there for him. And then round 3 was just super close. He could have went either way there, but they ended up giving the split decision to Tevin Giles. What I think is crazy and what I think is the biggest topic of the weekend was the judging. Somehow they gave one judge gave Tevin Giles the first round. It doesn't even make any sense. He was on his back for 4.5 minutes. I know James Krause went on to Ariel Helwani's show. Couldn't believe it. People can't believe it. So that fight, I don't know. What did you think about that whole decision too, by the way?
Yeah, the decision, I mean, it makes sense. It was definitely 1-1 going into the third. Mm-hmm. And I would say the third was pretty much a toss-up, to be honest. I personally thought Krause did enough to win that last round, but I can see why I would go the other way. But to judge that first round in Giles' favor makes no sense.
Insane.
I don't know what he would have done in that round. I think it was a mistake, to be honest. I don't know. I think the judge just made a mistake. He must not have known the fighters and known the names or something, because that's like the only thing I could think of that somebody would judge it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the same judge that earlier on the early prelims, the Andre Ewell and Jonathan Martinez fight, made a bad decision with Andre Ewell winning, which I don't agree with that one either. But I don't know. I guess there's just been a lot of controversy with this one judge. Joe Rogan even called him out kind of in the during one of the fights. I think it was the Lauren Murphy fight, where the guy was legit on his phone texting. He wasn't paying attention to the fight. And it's like stuff like that, these guys, this is their chance to win money, to change their lives and stuff like that. And for a guy that, listen, I'm not going to bash the guy. I don't know his background, but whatever. But people are trying to say he's not qualified to be judging all this stuff in Houston. I know there's different rules in different states, but that is crazy. The James Krause fight, when I found out that they gave round 1 to Tevin Giles, is just the craziest thing ever. But aside from that, awesome fight. Two sluggers in there. James Krause really showed, he's got heart, that he definitely has a future in this sport. It might not be at middleweight. He even said on the air of Hawani show, hey, these guys, I couldn't even friggin', if that was a welterweight, I could have choked him out. But you could tell Giles' size, his speed was kind of wearing on James a little bit. But I mean, his stock only goes up from here, man, because that was impressive what he did. So you got to give it up to James Krause. Give it up to Tevin Giles for still accepting that fight, still wanted to fight in front of his hometown. So obviously two big next steps for both of these guys. So excited to see where they go from here. And then just kind of heading on to the main card. Kicking off the main card, we had an exciting heavyweight bout between Derek Lewis and Ilir Latifi. Ilir Latifi making his heavyweight debut after his long stint at light heavyweight. Another close decision. Fun fight overall. We had friggin' Derek Lewis throwing flying knees. We had Ilir Latifi just throwing Derek Lewis around like Derek Lewis has no takedown defense. Personally, I thought Latifi did enough to win it. I thought the takedowns were enough. So they gave Derek Lewis a split decision. I think you could kind of see the relief in Derek Lewis's face. Obviously, he's the hometown guy, right? But I thought Latifi ragdolled him. I think Derek Lewis had a great third round. He showed his power. He showed his aggression. But I have to go with Latifi on this one. But I don't know. We haven't talked about this. So what did you think, too?
Yeah, no, I thought the same thing. I thought Latifi got robbed in that fight.
Yeah.
Derek Lewis, he did have a great third round. He came out really strong. He was really winging it towards the end. His cardio looked way better than we've seen in previous fights. He really went all out at the end of the fight. But, just even, like, looking at the stats, like, Latifi outstruck him.
Yep.
With 62-27. And he had 3 takedowns. And those takedowns weren't like where Lewis popped right back up. He controlled them for a considerable amount of time on the mat. So, I don't know. I had Latifi in this one. Derek Lewis did have good moments.
Yeah.
But Latifi coming up to heavyweight and just like that being his first fight, that's a tough one.
Oh, yeah.
He took some of Lewis's best shots and walked right through them, pretty much unfazed. So I don't know. I think he's probably got a pretty good outlook fighting in heavyweight.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the guy's got a great nickname. He's nicknamed the Sledgehammer. I mean, he looks like a friggin' sledgehammer, right? He like you said, he was taking Derek Lewis punches. Not a lot of people on this earth can take a Derek Lewis punch. I thought, he looked good at heavyweight. He got to put on some size. I mean, at light heavyweight, he was shredded. Yeah. But it's got to be a tough weight cut to get down to light heavyweight for Latifi. So I definitely like to see him in this weight class. Obviously, he didn't get the nod on this one. It's tough getting the nod from the hometown guy. I get why they gave it to Lewis, right? I mean, the dude was throwing flying knees. That was exciting. That got the crowd going, dude. I was pumped. But for both of these guys, man, they're going to be around for a while. I'm hoping that Latifi can get these bigger fights. Obviously, Derek Lewis, that's a big win for him, so I'm hoping that he gets a bigger fight. I think Curtis Blades called him out after the fight too, which, Curtis Blades is obviously a great wrestler. I think he's kind of in talks for maybe the next title shot or whatever. So excited to see both of these guys kind of work their way up in the heavyweight ranks. Obviously, Derek Lewis, he had his shot at the title, but, who wouldn't love to see Black Beast back in there? He's great on the mic. He's hilarious. He's got heart and he's got power. So exciting heavyweight fight there. Another controversial decision. So that's kind of already 3 that we've talked about now. So, really tough night in Houston. And then kind of just bring it to the co-main event, the first title fight we had, the women's flyweight with Valentina Shevchenko taking on Caitlin Chikagian. Valentina just looking dominant as ever. She gets the round 3 TKO. Nothing really surprising to me, man. She controlled the pace. I thought Caitlin did a lot of just missing. She was trying for the kicks. She wasn't landing anything. I think Valentina was just patient. She controlled the octagon so well and just did what she did. Did what she does best, which is knock you out onto the next one. So what'd you think about that one, buddy?
Yeah, it was a great performance by Valentina. I mean, she just dominated every aspect of that fight. On the feet, with the takedowns, the ground and pound. She looked great in that one.
Yeah, just the transition to that final sequence for the TKO that she had was just like, it was just incredible, dude. Like just the way she is, whether it's stand up on the ground, it's like she's good everywhere. It's like she doesn't have flaws, and that's the scary part. It's like obviously Chikagian is a great opponent. She was the next one up. She was the number 1 contender, and she put up a good fight. You know what I mean? I just thought that she didn't have the right game plan, and Valentina is, like I said, I don't see any flaws in her right now. So I guess my biggest question is, the question after that win is, after that another dominant win by Valentina, is it too early to make the Nunes trilogy? Do they let Valentina keep defending her belt, or is that the only exciting fight to make right now with her?
Yeah, no, it just stinks that they've already fought twice and she's lost to her twice. That's the only thing that makes making that fight tough.
Mm-hmm.
But as a fan, that's what I would like to see. I don't see anybody on like the whole female side of UFC roster that's comparable to those two. So I think it only makes sense that they fight again, but
yeah,
I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, it's just so tough because it's like you want to see Valentina go on a GOAT run. You want to see her, break a defense record or do whatever because she is good. And you know what? She's so humble, but at the same time, dude, you look at her and she's such a badass, dude, with the gun tattooed on her friggin' hip. It's like she's special, man. She's good everywhere. She's humble. You know what I mean? And she always shows respect to her opponents and stuff like that. So she's a beast. I know friggin' Dana White called her a gangster. And I know there's some exciting fights for her next. I'm assuming they're just going to throw the winner of, Joanna and Weili Zhang. I'm just guessing that's like another big fight they can make. I don't know, though. So we'll see what happens there. But Valentina, she's such a badass. Chikagian, you did a great job. You showed heart in there. But, when you're going up against one of the best, not even women pound for pound in the world, but one of the best fighters in the world, it's tough. It's tough. So good for both of the girls. I'm glad that was actually a really good fight in the co-main slot. So happy to see that. And then we move to the talk of the weekend. We had the main event, the light heavyweight title of the world, featuring Johnny Bones Jones taking on the number 1 contender, the undefeated Dominic Reyes. And I don't think people thought that this would be the outcome we'd be talking about. I think a lot of people thought John Jones was going to roll over Dom. Dom Reyes has the size. He's 6'4". He's actually a little bit bigger than Jones. When you look at the face-off and you look at all that stuff, a little bit bigger, I think. Dom Reyes, man, looked impressive. Round 1, round 2, beating Jones at the striking game, knocking John down, which I found out today that they didn't call it a knockdown. They called it a slip, and that pisses me off because Reyes knocked Jones down. They showed it 15 times. He knocked him down. Those first 2 rounds, Reyes piecing up Jones. It was impressive. I've never seen anything like that. The Santos fight was a little similar to that, but I don't think it was as decisive as what Reyes did on Saturday night. Round 3, I think you could give that a toss-up. I rewatched the fight friggin' 3 times. Round 3 definitely leans more towards Reyes. So I'd give Reyes rounds 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. Jones 110% won rounds 4 and 5. He controlled the pace. He outstruck Reyes. Obviously the takedowns, I know they didn't. Reyes got right back up after all those takedowns, but those do count. I'll give it to Jones. And he did a good job in those championship rounds, reclaiming his belt. In my opinion, like I said, I watched the fight 2-3 times. Reyes won that fight. It all came down to round 3, and I think Reyes did enough of round 3 to win rounds 1 through 3. Jones got 4 and 5. I know with the judging, we had that one particular judge that gave Tevin Giles round 1 against James Krause is the one that gave John Jones the fight 4 rounds to 1 against Dominic Reyes, which is absolutely absurd. So, Kevin, what did you think about Reyes' performance, and what did you think about the decision overall? Did you think Jones won?
So, first time I watched it, when I watched it live, I originally thought that Jones won. Mm-hmm. But rewatching it, I think I'm going to go with Reyes. The first round, he came out so fast. He didn't even give Jones really a chance to implement any of his own game plan. Mm-hmm. Did the same thing the second round. You did see him fade a little bit.
Yeah.
Going into the third, he did slow down, not a ton, but you did see a little change in his pace. But even that round, he was outlanding him. He's hitting him with some really, really hard shots.
Yeah.
He landed a pretty good head kick. I don't know if that was in the third round or second round, but he had Jones guessing. He wasn't able to. Jones is so good at, adjusting to his opponents and finding a weakness. It didn't seem like he was able to do that in this fight at all. It seemed like he was a little bit off balance with the way Reyes was, taking angles with his striking. He seemed like he wasn't able to really predict what Reyes was going to do next, and he ended up taking a lot more shots than he's ever taken in any fight previous.
Yeah.
And one thing about round 4 too is like that first minute, Reyes had a pretty good exchange with him where he was kind of chasing him down, mm-hmm. And he landed like I want to say it was 4 or 5 like clean hard shots right at the very beginning of that round.
Yeah,
and then things kind of shifted from that point. But when you think about it, with like the way the ruling is, like the number one criteria that they look at is damage. Yeah, I forget what they actually call it. They don't call it damage, but that's like the number one thing that they look at. And then if it's even, then they move to a different criteria.
Yeah.
I think Reyes in that first minute inflicted more damage than Jones did the rest of that round, even though he got the takedown.
Yeah.
And he landed some shots of his own. But I don't know. That's what makes the judging so tricky, because who's to say that, Jones was more damaged in that round than Reyes was? And I don't know. Jones has a takedown, but didn't really do much with it, and he outstruck Reyes. So that's what makes it tough. But watching it again, I think I have to give that fight to Reyes.
Do you so just kind of going off of what you said, do you think it could have been 4-1 Reyes?
I think there was potential. Like I could definitely see a reason for it being that way, but I don't think it was too likely.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think 3-2 Reyes. I really do. I think those takedowns, listen, there's a difference between those takedowns and Khabib takedowns. When Khabib mauls you for 3 minutes. Jones He,
or like what he did to
yeah,
Anthony Smith.
yeah,
Like
exactly,
when he had Anthony Smith on the ground, he was landing some vicious elbows.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
that wasn't the case in this fight at all.
no, Dominic was getting up within seconds. There was no punches thrown. There was nothing. Um, and I was impressed. I was impressed with Rez's, takedown defense, being the ability to get up with a guy like Jones, who's very good at grappling. But dude, I also have to give it up for Jones, man. He was taking some of the hardest shots he's ever taken in his career. So it just puts you in a tough situation. I know a lot of people out there think Jones won. A lot of people out there think Reyes won. I think the majority of people think Reyes won. And I'm one of those. I know you're one of those too. I know, listen, I had friggin' all of our friends texting us too. Like, did Reyes win that? Like, he definitely won that, right? And the people I was with, I basically told them, I said, listen, this going to the judges is not good. This is not good. You're not going to beat John Jones on the scorecard. You're not going to do it, dude. And that's what sucks about this sport sometimes is you've got guys like that who, if you don't make it decisive enough, you ain't going to beat a champion. You're not going to do it. I truly believe that. I guess, next question here is, do they make this an immediate rematch? Because I know Jones, a couple of years ago, right, he had the close fight with Gustafsson.
Mm-hmm.
Closest fight of his career. It took them 3 years to make the rematch. Is this going to be the same case, you think? Do you think they're going to run this back real quick? Or do you think, hey, next up in line, which we'll talk about next, or do you think they're going to run this back?
I think that they're going to run this back. I think the big thing with the Gustafsson not getting that immediate rematch is because they always had DC right there. So he was always in the mix, always looking for that Jones fight as well. With this, John's alternatives to fighting Reyes, I don't think it's as enticing as the Reyes rematch. And I know he probably doesn't want to go and fight him, immediately after this, but I think Reyes is the top contender, and I think we really have to answer the question, who is the better fighter?
Yep.
And even like in the post fight conference, Dana White was saying that he had it 3-2 as well. So I'm sure he's going to be on board to have this fight again.
Yeah, and obviously it's what the fans want, right? And the fans make fights. So I think if Jones put up a poll on his Instagram or Reyes put up a poll, they're going to want this rematch. It's too close for comfort for fans. Mm-hmm. I guess that's my last question would be, the rematch happens. Mm-hmm. Who do you got? Rematches are completely different. That's what worries me about this.
Yeah.
Do I see Reyes doing exactly what he did? And the unfortunate answer for me is I don't. I see John Jones. I see him utilizing the footage that he has and saying, I'm not going to make these mistakes again. Do I think John Jones has taken a step back to what he was a couple of years ago? Yeah, I do. But at the end of the day, he's still John Jones. He can still take a shot. He's still long. He's still rangy. And he's still one of the greatest of all time. And that's what worries me about this rematch is that he's going to adapt. He's going to know Dom Reyes more. He's not. Did he overestimate him? Underestimate him? Maybe. And then maybe this next time he comes out and he does what he did to Gus and he finishes him. So that's the great thing about this sport. You just don't know it. But I don't know. What do you think about a rematch? Who do you got in the rematch?
Yeah. The thing with Jones is like his two toughest fights where DC won, Gustafsson won. They were both decisions, really close fights. He went into rematches with both of them and he finished the two of them.
Yeah.
So he's gonna make some crazy adjustments. He's gonna learn from this fight. That's the scary thing about Jones is that he's not one-dimensional. Everything about this game, like he takes in and he's gonna learn from it. So whether it be the striking, whether he should incorporate more takedowns, different takedowns, clinch work, or whatever. he's going to come out better the next fight. It's just the question of, is Reyes going to do the same thing? Or is he going to also improve and be a better version of himself, learn about Jones, learn about that experience that he had? It was his first 5-round fight. His first time going all 5 rounds. So that's an experience within itself. But we know Jones is going to come out better. He's going to come out different. Reyes is just the question mark.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think Reyes earned a lot of new fans. I think there were people that didn't give Reyes a shot at all. But if you look at the people that Jones has struggled with, it's been those bigger guys, right? It's been guys like a Gustafsson, like a Santos, like a Reyes, right? And he put it all on the line, and I think his stock went through the roof. Mm-hmm. I think, he should have been and new, and I think John Jones should be, kind of begging for the rematch right now to try to get his belt back. But it's tough to beat, a champion by a decision. I think, you take a look at like a Henry Cejudo who beat Demetrius Johnson, right? You're looking at that. Like, I didn't think Henry Cejudo beat DJ in that fight, right? And now look at this. He beat the champ, and you take a look at this one. I thought Reyes won, and he didn't. I think the whole world thinks he won. So, but yeah, I mean, the rematch is going to be epic. I really hope they do run it back immediately. I don't know how hurt either guy is. I think Reyes' nose was a little busted up. So I think other than that, they looked fine. I know he was limping out of the octagon a little bit, but I think that was just from the kicks and stuff. So I'd love to see that run back like in the summer or something. But if they don't run it back, moving on to our next topic here, which would be the main event for this weekend's card, which is a light heavyweight fight, which if they do not run the Jones-Reyes fight back, this is for the number 1 contender spot. We have Corey Anderson taking on Jan Blachowicz, number two. In their first fight, they fought back at UFC 191. Corey Anderson won in a 3-round decision. So with these two guys, super exciting matchup, man. You got Corey Anderson, who is a very, very gifted, strong, tough wrestler, who is coming off of a, awesome knockout victory over a very hyped up fighter, Johnny Walker, who he was the guy that was supposed to be Jones. Johnny Walker, they gave Corey Anderson no respect in that fight, and Anderson starched him in a minute. So he's exciting, man. He's hungry. He wants that title, right? And then he's taking on Jan Blachowicz, the Polish Power, man. We all know what this guy can do. He's a friggin' animal. With Jan, he is coming off – what was his last fight? He took on
Jacare Souza.
Yeah, he took on Jacare, which he beat Jacare in a 5-round decision. Definitely not the most exciting fight we've seen out of the Polish Power, man. But this one's interesting. The winner of this is the true number 1 contender if the rematch with Reyes and Jones doesn't happen. Who do you like in this one, Kev? In this one, I know Anderson won the first one. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with Anderson again on this. I think his wrestling, he's too strong. He's too powerful. And I think he wants that belt, man. I think he feels disrespected. I think he's going to come on. I think he's going to knock Jan out. So what do you think?
Yeah, Jan in his last fight, he just looked a little too he wasn't putting enough pressure on Souza. He ended up getting the win regardless, but it was kind of a boring fight. Neither of them really took chances. But I think Anderson, if Jan comes out that same way, I think Anderson's going to take full advantage of that and get the victory.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But overall, I think this is going to be a great fight. A lot of implications at hand here. Obviously, everything kind of depends on the Jones-Reyes situation. I know that just happened, so it's going to be a little tough to tell depending on like injuries and whatever contract negotiations, whatever goes on there. But kind of UFC 247, definitely one of the more controversial cards. I think scoring and judging is going to be a big topic for the next couple of weeks here. I know that there's some rumors of Kansas being able to. They're going to try to implement like live scoring. So fighters are going to actually know the scores of the fight as the rounds go on, which I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I don't want some guy who's up 2-0 to go into the third round and then just coast because he knows he's going to win this fight and all he's got to do is avoid a takedown or do whatever. So I don't know how I feel about it, but I do think, the judging system needs to be a lot better. I think, getting, old fighters to judge fights or, I don't know. I think we need to do a better job at the way we judge this. I know each state is completely different. Some judge on octagon control, which I don't even friggin' know what that means. They were all saying Jones had the best octagon control for rounds 4 and 5. But what is that? Circling around the octagon, keeping your guy up against the fence without throwing any strikes. So that one was frustrating. The whole card, I thought was frustrating. The Valentina fight was awesome. Obviously, the Jones-Reyes fight was awesome. The outcome was, you always love seeing an and new, right? Especially with a guy like an undefeated guy like Reyes who really gave it his all to try to beat one of the greatest of all time. So definitely heartbreaking for him, but hopefully he gets his rematch. Hopefully he gets his money, he gets paid. But UFC 247 overall, really good co-main main event, minus the whole, judging debacle. UFC Fight Night 167 next week. Anderson, Blachowicz, that's going to be a great one. Kev, anything else you wanted to cover today?
Nope.
Awesome. Guys, again, this is our 20th episode. We appreciate everyone was there from day one. Tell your friends. Click that subscribe button. Go buy some CBD. Click the link below for 10% off. Flatline 10. Use the code. And then until next time, Flatline MMA. Peace.